needs your help.
Season 2 of The Mandalorian is done and dusted, and man was that a massive disappointment. Everything I was worried they would do, they did, and even managed to exceed my expectations for just how much fan service they were willing to throw at us. Spoiler alert, they threw even the kitchen sink in. I don't know why I was surprised. After all, Star Wars has never been able to get away from itself. The prequels aped the original trilogy to give the illusion of world building, when really it's just recycling elements like bad poetry.
That's your great-great-great-grandfather.
The animated shows were set between key movies in the series, so the weight of those space epics were always over them. And then we have Disney's sequel trilogy, which began as an oxymoronic, refreshing retread that reminded us of how exciting and inspiring Star Wars can be.
That's one hell of a pilot!
They ended with recalling why, despite appearing to be a vast universe with limitless possibilities, Star Wars is ultimately a bunch of iconic images recycled over and over again to cash in on nostalgia. They tricked us twice already. You could see this in Rogue One, a film that relies heavily on A New Hope for its plot, but because that's not enough fan service, here's a pointless Darth Vader action scene. Still not enough? Here's R2-D2 and C-3PO. Still no? Here's creepy digital Princess Leia. Are you loving it yet? Do I even need to bring up Solo? All this to say that after seeing Star Wars continually misunderstood and butchered, boy did I roll my eyes at the announcement of the Boba Fett show. Well, yeah, I rolled my eyes at that, but I mean before that, when this was the Boba Fett show. There was no reason to think The Mandalorian would be any good. Disney in the space of 5 years had driven Star Wars, one of the highest grossing franchises in history, into a coma by saturating the market with too much crap. What used to be an event series, with entries coming along once in a generation, had now been Marvelized.
Is there a garbage chute? Trash compactor?
So every year we had to keep seeing the same lightsabers, and stormtroopers, and AT-STs, and Jedis, and Sith. And you get the point. The Mandalorian was just another Star Wars product that Disney were going to pump out with help from a cuddly teddy bear named Jon Favreau, who sold his soul in the mouse house, and has been stuck making creepy animated animal movies ever since. But the show ended up being exactly the kind of Star Wars content I've been waiting for. Favreau dragged Star Wars away from its limited narrative scope and over-reliance on iconic imagery, and crafted a space western that made exploring the galaxy far, far away fun again. What images it did reuse, it put a fresh twist on them. Boba Fett was Mando, a character stuck between his adoptive Mandalorian family and the child who he's become a father figure to. The idea of taking Yoda, the wise old mentor, and flipping the script so now he's the one who's in need of a master was a masterstroke. No pun intended.
Yes.
And that's before we even got to see the great silent film era comedy that would come from such a change. Despite the first season's overall episodic nature, something that I was a big fan of, bookending the outing was Werner Herzog as the secondary big bad, and from the first time we see him, you're enthralled. That's the kind of casting where you could have the worst script, have him read the phone book, but the sheer presence of a man like Herzog just adds so much gravitas to proceedings.
How uncharacteristic of one of your reputation.
Now, season 1 wasn't perfect. Gina Carano didn't convince me of her acting ability. Dave Filoni's episode I actually found pretty boring.
She's got the high ground.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
And I was sad to see Herzog get gunned down to be replaced with a much more typical looking Star Wars villain, who of course has a laser sword, because, well, they all do. But overall, I loved the first season, and I was looking forward to a second outing. Despite my reservations, hell, I made a whole video about my thoughts going into the sophomore season. But I'm going to trust Favreau and the boys to deliver on this second season. Even with all the incoming Clone Wars and Rebels characters, even with the possible focus on that daft laser sword, and even without my boy Werner, The Mandalorian still stands as a shining beacon in the dark void that is Star Wars, and I'm excited to revisit that world very, very soon. So yeah, moral of the story, don't trust anyone because they'll just disappoint you. I said Favreau dragged Star Wars away from its limitations and fan service in Season 1, well he threw it right back into the status quo in Season 2. I mentioned in that previous video, did they write the script and then add the characters, or was it the other way around? It seems like they were in a board meeting. Disney said they wanted 100 new series in the next 5 years, and with that, The Mandalorian stopped being the interesting new kid in town with all these cool ideas and instead became backdoor Pilot City. A vast majority of the season is just dedicated to introducing these legacy characters to the average person who doesn't really care about the animated shows. Bo-Katan and WWE superstar Sasha Fox, Disney really loves their wrestling, don't they, get a couple of episodes to set up Rangers of the New Republic. Ahsoka gets a whole episode literally called The Jedi, which sets up the plot of her own show, and then cool raggedy ass costume man, who is now plump belly shiny costume man, is in the whole last half of the season just so we could get this little stinger. Like what? So let's dig deep into this wretched turd, and in order to bring some balance to proceedings, I've enlisted the help of my friend and self-proclaimed Star Wars masturbator Ruairi, seen here through the lens of 2009's finest webcam, to bring some positive vibes. He'll be interjecting every so often to give us his thoughts on why this season was amazing, and even give you some interesting Star Wars trivia that I wasn't aware of.
I always remember Krayt Dragons having legs in the old canon, but I didn't complain because it was fucking amazing.
So if you haven't already, click the like button and subscribe to the channel, and if you're ready to explore yet another Star Wars disaster, as if we didn't have enough of them already, then let's get into it.
Marshal wears Mandalorian armor.
Huh? See for yourself.
Let's start with positivity. Myself and Ruairi both agree that episode 1 is utterly brilliant, and I personally think it's the best episode of the entire series, let alone this season. It's everything I think a show like this should be. A self-contained adventure that shows us some new things, puts some obstacles in front of our characters, and they either surmount the challenge or they fail and learn valuable lessons. Classic situation of the week style storytelling that's dying out in the streaming era, where most high-profile shows are 8 to 10 hour long movies.
I didn't expect Cobb Vanth to be in it. Guy was a Legends character. Freetown, that was good. The mining collective moving in straight as soon as the Empire fell, they brought that up. As soon as there's a power vacuum, people will try to take power.
The episode really did have everything. Little noir gangster action with Sid from Ice Age. Then we go to Tatooine and find Mos Pelgo, where who walks in? Timothy frickin' Oliphant, oh my god. I saw him in that armor and knew it was him, and if that was the only time we saw the Boba Fett armor, I thought that would have been a fun little nod. Sadly it isn't, but we'll get to that. Mando wants the armor, and Timothy wants help taking down a big-ass sand dragon, which we saw the bones of in A New Hope. See, that's the kind of shit I'm okay with. When you expand on these small details and create something new and exciting. And what excites me is frickin' intention and obstacle.
Intention and obstacle.
The backbone of drama. The Mando bros want different things, and so they team up to overcome the big obstacle sand dragon to get said things. It's storytelling at its tightest and most efficient, and I can't say enough good things about it. The effects are incredible, the action is exquisite with Big Boy Favreau finally getting behind the camera. It's pretty much perfect. Except for the ending.
I'll not lie. Jizzed my pants. Full nerdgasm.
Boba Fett with his stupid robe and his guns and his dumb scarred face. I've never went flaccid so fast in my life. I let out an audible, oh no, please God no. Because I knew at that point they weren't going to do anything interesting with the character. He was just going to be Macho Man.
Macho, macho, macho man, yeah. I got to be a macho, I got to be a...
And the fans would no doubt cream because they finally have the oh so interesting raggedy ass costume man back. It was a sign of bad things to come, but I had to keep watching to know for sure if my worries were justified. Spoiler alert, they were. I had to bring up that episode because that's the only time I think everyone was on the same page. It was a brilliant piece of television, and who wasn't excited to see what the show would do next?
If only that had continued into episode 2.
Well, episode 2 was a slow, plodding, and not overly exciting effort that everyone now describes as filler.
Which I hated. Hate might be a strong word. I heavily disliked.
Except me, because I loved it. It was exactly the kind of thing I wanted to see after the huge scale of the season opener. Small, concise, while still giving us new and interesting things. One of the best parts of the episode is the running gag of Baby Yoda continually eating the eggs of the frog lady. Apparently people find this insulting or something.
That these eggs are like basically the last of this person's, this like frog lady's bloodline. They keep playing it off as a comedic thing, and it's just so stupid. I wanted to kick the little green fucker across the screen.
But it's freaking hilarious. This cute little bugger is committing mass genocide via mukbang. Honestly, the only reason people were so hard on this episode is because, well, they read the news. Big spiders weren't enough for them. They want to see old man in Mando suit, or this lady in Mando suit, or a tentacle hentai chick. They knew what was coming and they wanted it as soon as possible. They didn't want the Mandalorian anymore. They didn't want what Favreau had originally envisioned. They wanted a live-action Filoni show.
Genuinely completely felt like filler. It felt like, okay, let's see what we can do to make people wait for the epic shit that happened, in the next episode and the episode after.
And so my enjoyment went directly down the shitter as we move into the second act of the season and the main problems start to arise. Mando has had more than a few badass moments, but they always felt earned because you saw him get his rust bucket ass handed to him on so many occasions. It didn't make him seem weak or powerless, it just made the world he inhabited seem dangerous, and so going into every confrontation, you really didn't know what would happen. Maybe he'll win and maybe he won't. This commitment to letting your main character suffer is what keeps the tension, it's what keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it what keeps you coming back for more. This was understood in the first 2 episodes, but as soon as episode 3 rolls around, then all of that goes out the window.
But lo and behold, some of my favourite characters show up.
You make Bo-Katan, played by the ever-amazing Katie Sackhoff, who in her first scene drops in with her amigos to save Mando. Great way to introduce these guys, I didn't immediately groan.
Din's all like super happy for a second, and then they take their helmets off. And Din goes full Catholic to establish that he was still, holding to the creed.
But then they proceed to do this exact same scene again. They come in and disperse the goons with no effort, and then a little voice in the back of my mind starts nagging at me. None of these characters are going to suffer, are they? Of course, characters not going through challenges goes directly against the rules of basic drama, but this is Star Wars, Jack. Remember that George Lucas made an entire movie trilogy going against the rules of basic drama.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I don't sense anything.
Sadly, the nagging voice was proved correct as the 4 Mandamigos board an Empire ship and fight through an endless wave of stormtroopers.
Essentially space Grand Theft Auto. God, do they massacre them, because of course they do, because they're fucking stormtroopers and their shitty Duraplast armor.
And finally get to the cockpit just for Bo-Katan to interrogate this dude from Transformers 4 about the Darksaber.
The Darksaber, does he have it?
If you're asking, you already know.
All that tensionless action just so she could look at old Titus and say the word Darksaber, because apparently that's super important.
No, the reason she wants it is because she is the Mandalore. She's the ruler of Mandalore. She wants the saber back, and Gideon took it.
This continues for most of the remaining episodes, where action is just boring because the characters are impervious to damage and exist to pose for cool shots that people can screen cap and go, "This was the moment I shat myself." Actually, speaking of that,
Grogu and I can feel each other's thoughts.
I don't care about Ahsoka Tano. This Trump-colored tentacle-haired lady is apparently one of the greatest Star Wars characters ever.
Possibly the greatest female character in Star Wars canon.
And since my previous video, I actually have watched some episodes of the final season of the Clone Wars. It's actually pretty good. So I get why people say that, but I don't care about this Ahsoka Tano. Anything that I connected with in the Clone Wars version has been stripped away, and what we're left with is...
And let her anger fuel an industry which helped build the Imperial Starfleet.
A prequel Jedi. Lots of bland line delivery interspersed with tensionless action that holds no stakes because she's a prequel Jedi from the school of George Lucas and laser swords.
So I'm presuming maybe Yoda and Master Yaddle, who left just before Ahsoka joined, did the nasty and popped out a little baby. They're extremely rare and still unnamed species. And he was raised there.
I don't know how people creamed over this, but found Luke in The Last Jedi so terrible. I know she was also in Star Wars Rebels, so maybe something happened there, but it simply doesn't excuse the fact that in this episode, separated from any previous context and simply being the show's go-to Jedi for the plot, she's a hollow statue. Looks cool, but not much there outside of that.
And then we get the big tease. The tease that you, Jack, hated, but every Star Wars nerd, the third nerdgasm, because of where is your master?
Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?
Thrawn is the best character in all of Star Wars. Just the best.
This seems to be the direction Filoni wants to go with the character, because Rosario Dawson is a tremendous actor, as are all the people playing previously established characters. So I don't doubt if she was given more energetic and interesting material, she would have been a force to be reckoned with. That grand posturing also seems to infect the story of these episodes as well. From the opening, you can see Filoni adores the cinema of Akira Kurosawa and Sergio Leone, with the final confrontation even directly contrasting the Eastern and Western styles. I should love this. I should have been really invested. but I wasn't. The episode should have been about the small town and Mando trying to help it, just like he did in Mos Pelgo in the season opener. Instead, it feels like an afterthought, an episode of cool visuals cobbled together as yet another backdoor pilot for Ahsoka, a teaser for her own full-length series. Now, I'm critical of her, but I'd take her any day over.
The slave fucking one shows up, and everyone screams. Even if you hated it, you probably went, ah, but everyone was like, oh, no.
Boba Fett is the worst thing about this season character-wise. He serves zero function other than Disney wants a Boba Fett show, which they already have. It's called The Mandalorian. Why do you need another show with an identical looking character? It's so stupid. I hate it. He brings nothing to the table. Oh, but Jack, he shows Mando that there's a wider world outside of the Mandalorian creed. First of all, it's nice of you to remember that Mando is actually the main character of the show. And secondly, that's what frickin' Bo-Katan is for. He doesn't need to be here, and this episode is the worst of the season. Worse than the 4th episode where Carl Weathers sleepwalks his way through directing, worse than Ahsoka's episode where Filoni sleepwalks his way through writing, and even worse than the finale where, no, we will come to that. Roberto Rodriguez is a talented filmmaker. From low budget to high budget, I respect the man's hustle, but this was horribly directed. It's a simple setup too, a hill, 2 directions, either up or down. It's the corridor of outdoor spaces. How do you screw up spatial geometry on a frickin' hill? I don't know, but somehow he does it. More endless waves of stormtroopers getting picked off one by one as the characters pose for cool screenshots for fans to make wallpapers out of, and you get the impression that Rodriguez thinks the tension's rising.
This isn't looking good.
Because Boba Fett arriving is played as a massive badass save the day moment, which it really isn't. They could have handled it without your beer belly rust bucket ass.
Kind of a real gruff, like probably in my opinion, the sexiest New Zealand accent ever. Pure fan, it's fan service, but it's good fan service. It ain't cringy fan service.
It was the first time I actively hated an episode. Everything was just executed so poorly, which was not only a far cry from season 1, but the start of this season. I had lost all hope. This season was a dumpster fire, and I was going to have to suffer through the remaining 2 episodes. And then something amazing happened.
Mayfield?
Hey, Ando. Long time.
Rick Famuyiwa gets Favreau's vision for The Mandalorian better than he does. He also directed the wonderful prison episode from last season, one of the best episodes, and showed that Famuyiwa is a guy who sees the Star Wars universe differently to most. When I saw that Bill Burr as Miggs Mayfield was returning, I sighed. I enjoyed him last season, but I was craving something new, and I thought he was going to be here to crack jokes and be as annoying as the blue guy who for some reason they had to bring back.
I believe you two have met.
Hate that dick. Hate him. Instead, this was Burr's finest acting to date, a return to form for the season, and another example of what The Mandalorian can be when it's not so focused on fan service. The whole episode is set up as them needing Mayfield to get the coordinates for a Moff Gideon's ship, so it's not a complete sidestep, but it does mean we get to boot all these other characters out of the picture and have a nice minimal story. Mando and Mayfield getting the coordinates and finding out some unsettling things along the way. I really love this episode. The action was exciting, the tension with Richard Blake's character was edge of your seat worthy, and it was nice to see the show pivot back to being fully about Mando and his mindset. He had to make a bold choice this episode. Just by removing his helmet, you really felt just how far he'd come since that very first episode, and what he was willing to do that he wasn't willing to do then. The episode also explored the us versus them mentality, something that's the cornerstone of Star Wars, the light versus the dark. However, Famuyiwa, who's writing and directing, wants to muddy the waters a little bit, from having Mando dress in Imperial uniform, notice the similarities, to having the traditionally heroic fanfare play as the Empire saves Mando and Mayfield. He wants you to think about not only the possibility of there being good people on the enemy side, but maybe the good side isn't as good as they like to think.
I'm a survivor, just like you.
Let's get one thing straight. You and I are nothing alike.
Blake's character goes on about how any loss of human life is justified in the search of the greater good. Mayfield, who served during a particularly bloody battle, argues that it wasn't for their greater good. You could see on Mando's face that he sees what he meant now by both of them being similar. They're men who've experienced great loss at the hands of the Empire, even though they come from 2 traditionally opposing sides. and when Mayfield hands him his helmet, it's through respect.
As far as I'm concerned, if you can make it through your day and still sleep at night, you're doing better than most.
Mando letting Mayfield walk away is a sign of growth that the enemy is not always wearing a uniform. Sometimes they're not so easy to find. But now we have the coordinates, so let's go and beat up the obvious bad guy.
No, the finale. Oh, the finale. The finale that probably f***ed you off.
The last episode of the season was everything I feared it would be. Badass characters beating up useless enemies for half an hour, and then, like they set up in episode 6, a Jedi would come and save them. I saw the Deus Ex part coming a mile away, but never in a million years did I think they'd stoop low enough to actually have that Jedi be Luke Skywalker. How desperate do you have to have it be Luke Skywalker? Terrible deepfake Luke at that. Not Sebastian Stan or a lookalike. They went with the off-putting CGI route. Boy, does it really suck.
Awesome. It's heart-wrenching. It's everything I love.
I don't really have anything else to say for that moment. The fact that it's Luke Skywalker really pulled me away from what was actually a pretty emotional moment when Baby Yoda, sorry lads, no Grogu here, said goodbye to Mando. This whole ending was directly preceded by some dumb shit about Mando being the rightful ruler of Mandalore, because in order to rule, Bo-Katan needed to beat Gideon in combat for the Darksaber, which Mando did. And he wants nothing to do with it, but she won't take the Darksaber, and I'm just sitting there like, take the stupid laser sword, woman, stop creating unnecessary drama, this ain't YouTube. And all of that was crammed into the finale of a 45-minute long episode, of which it felt like half was dedicated to seeing some random stunt double perform lots of cool choreography to show how badass Skywalker was in his prime. It gave me horrible flashbacks to that Vader scene in Rogue One. It was so pandering.
God, it's kind of bullshitty, but it's the George Lucas. It's like poetry. It rhymes. You know, these things come back around.
Where's the tightly executed spectacle of episode 1? Where's the slow burn of the Frog Egg Genocide episode? Where's the themes and intrigue of the previous episode? What happened to the Star Wars that I used to know?
Not really any more complaints. I loved it, really. Yeah,
this video ran a little long, but this whole season went from incredible to dog shit so quickly in my eyes. And I'm aware that I'm in the minority. The reviews are great, and Rory especially is excited for what's to come, but me, I think I'm done. The Mandalorian was a show I loved because it tried to be something else other than Star Wars, but that's clearly what Disney wants it to be, and it's what the fans want it to be as well. Another Star Wars show in a long line of past and future Star Wars shows. But you know what? We've grown apart, but I'll always remember the good times. And to quote Dr. Seuss, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. May the Force be with you, Star Wars.